So, tonight, what I want to talk about is all the things that you believe as a result of what you experienced before that has to happen in order for you to be loved. There's so much pressure that we place upon ourselves that we're not even aware of because of the way we were brought up and because of the things that we were taught growing up, whether they were conscious or unconscious. Okay? So a lot of us grew up, and I want you to answer these two questions. Like, they're the main two questions that I want you to answer. So focus on them. So a lot of us grew up having to do something in order to receive love. Okay? This is the first question I want you to answer. What did I have to do to receive love? Did you have to perform in school? Did you have to do really good in sports? Did you have to clean up? Like, what did you have to do to receive love? Majority of the clients that I coach grew up in a performance-based household, meaning they were taught that tasks and accomplishments were like the main thing. And when they did the things that they were supposed to do, they got praise, they got recognition, right? It's kind of already how the Western world works, right? You're not a big deal unless you accomplish something. So a lot of people grew up that way, that they realized and they recognized when they did something that they would get the praise, the recognition, the love, the support, the gifts, the hugs, the words of affirmation or whatever when they did something. And so then when women get older, they continue this pattern in their relationships. So they start dating and then they just like do a tremendous amount of things for the people that they're dating, and it's still not working out. They're like, dang, like, how is this person not loving me? I am doing everything for them, right? So this mindset is carried into relationships, but more importantly, the same way of doing with the wish of, like, I'm doing this so I can receive love. And this is not conscious many times, it just continues, right? So I want you to ask yourself the question, what did I have to do to receive love? Okay? And then look at what kind of pressure you're putting on yourself today. Like, what are all the things that you're doing that you think that you have to do, because if you don't do them, then you're not worthy of love. Okay? Not a lot of us grew up learning that we were unconditionally loved no matter what we did. And this has nothing to do with that you have to be a lazy person and no matter what, you're good. No, we have desires and we're here to make things happen too. But at your very essence, you're worthy, you're perfect as you are at your core, right? As humans, we're imperfect, but imperfectly perfect, perfectly imperfect. So that's something to look at, because a lot of women have this pattern of constantly doing for the person that they're with and always feeling like they do more than the other person. But oftentimes this way of giving, excessive doing, comes from a place of lack, and it's coming from a place of, if I do enough of things, if I do enough of this, then eventually this person will see how amazing I am. And I remember reading this somewhere. I was just like, wow. A woman said that initially when she starts talking to people, they don't see her worth. But maybe after a few dates, after she's done a few things for these people, then maybe they start seeing her worth, right? And this is kind of like the pattern that she's been having. And the crazy thing is that a lot of women carry this belief that unless they don't do certain things, then they're not worthy. And this is where the whole comparison and competition kicks in. Because if the person doesn't appreciate what you do, then you make it mean something about yourself, because you're really doing these things to receive love, right? So there's a lot of pressure on you to make sure that you perform and that you over-deliver at all times, right? So this is not only happening in your business or in your career, but you also do this in your dating life. And again, because there is this pressure of like, I have to do this so this person will see how amazing I am, then you're constantly going to be comparing yourself and be looking outside of yourself, because you're always going to wonder if what you're doing is enough. If there's someone else out there who's doing it better than you, and you have to step up your game at all times, and it's all about like what you can do for another person, but secretly what you want is for that person to do the same things, or for that person to really see you. And you think the way to that person's heart is through doing, is through action. Okay, so that's the first question I want you to ask yourself. What did I have to do to receive love growing up? And looking at your past relationships, how can you see that pattern repeating itself? With you trying super hard, with you thinking that this is the way that you have to go to receive love. And just ask yourself, like, how successful was it? How successful was it? And what did it lead to? What did it lead to? How did I feel then when those relationships failed, where I put my all into them? I did all these things and I didn't receive what I wanted. What did that lead to? Did that lead to you closing off your heart, developing resentment? Or did that lead to you realizing that, wow, maybe I'm trying too hard? So what did that lead to? That's the first thing I want you to look at. And the second question I want you to ask yourself is, who did I have to be? Who did I have to be to receive love? What was acceptable and what wasn't? So for me and the majority of my clients, not being able to be fully expressed was like one of the main things. Either you were like shushed in a very aggressive way, or you were manipulated or told that you're exaggerating and you should be the bigger person, or whatever the case may have been for you. So what was happening growing up? Like, who did you have to be in order for your parents or your caregivers to accept you and to love you, and for you to feel safe, valued, appreciated? Like, who did you have to become and who did you have to be? So look at it from this perspective too. What parts of you did you have to shut down in order for you to be accepted by your parents or your caregivers? This is a major question you have to ask yourself. Who did I have to be? And so when you look at that, you're going to start seeing that throughout your dating life, you've been doing the same thing here too. Not just with what you had to do to receive love from your parents or your caregivers, but who you had to be. The exact same pattern followed you into your dating life and into your relationships. So you were focused on what you were doing for another person because you wanted their love. And then also you were worried about how you were around them, who you were around them, because you remember when you were a little girl growing up, it wasn't safe, it wasn't okay, it wasn't appreciated, it was not welcomed for you to be expressed. It was not welcomed for you to be super creative or super fiery or super talented in something, whatever the case may have been for you. So then because you learned that, and because you realize that the more I am me, the more expressed I am, the less attention I get from my parents, my caregivers, that means I'm not good enough, I'm too much, right? We start creating these stories, and then you bring that into your relationships. So then in relationships and romantic relationships, you shut parts of you down, and it's not even like you're consciously shutting them down. You've been doing it for a long time, right? You've been conditioned to be a certain type of way because as a child, it was really important for you to be acknowledged and appreciated by your parents as much as possible. If you grew up with both, or if you grew up with one, then it was from that person. Or if you were adopted, it doesn't matter, still your parents, right? Or if you grew up with your grandparents. But you had to adapt, right? It's not like you could have just been like, bye, I'm divorcing you, I'm just gonna move out. Can't do that as a child, nor as a teenager till you reach a certain year. But then, like I say many times, we get so angry. We get so angry as children and then as teenagers, and we can't wait for the day that we move out from our parents just to find ourselves in the same trap, right? I'm free now, we think, but we're in the same mental prison. We're in the same emotional bondage. we're in the same physical pain because we take ourselves with us everywhere. And that's something the majority of us didn't realize when we left the nest, when we moved out. And so everything you had to do and everything you had to be growing up, you take that with you into your dating experiences and into your relationships. And you think by doing more for the other person or by shutting more parts of you down and allowing the other person to be them fully and for you to only support them and encourage them and allow them to flourish, that's the way to go. Because the more you do that, the more they're going to love you. But it never works that way and you're so confused. And then you add an additional story. Wow, it doesn't matter what I do or who I am or how I support the person, they still don't value me. There must be something completely wrong with me. I'm trying so hard. Like, and these stories just continue. But because you think you have to do so much and be so much, you continue to attract people who are going to take advantage of it. You're going to continue to attract people who are just like, oh, okay, that's what you want to do. So it's not another person's responsibility to figure out why you're doing what you're doing, but it is your responsibility to see where you're coming from and why you're doing what you're doing. And if you have some type of ulterior motives, which a lot of us do, a lot of people do, even though they don't want to admit it, because we're always focusing on the other person. But the pressure that we place on ourselves, all with the hope that we're going to receive love, is a lot. It's a lot of pressure, and it gets so much, and then it kind of spills over onto the other person, and we get frustrated with the other person when they don't do what we want them to do, because we're doing so much. We're trying so hard. We're being this incredible person for them. So asking yourself these two questions can literally transform so much for you moving forward. What did I have to do in order to receive love growing up? And who did I have to be? And you see that, and then you look at your patterns in your old relationships. Did that continue in my relationships? And does that maybe explain why it wasn't working out a lot of the times? And if so, what do I need to stop doing or start doing? And who do I need to become moving forward to be more like me, to remember who I truly am, so I can call in someone who's aligned with me, where there is not a lot of pressure, but love is unconditional. And yes, I'm still going to do things for the person because that's what I want to do, but I'm not going to do it just because I want to receive something in return. And in the beginning, it's going to be challenging because you're not going to see the difference. You're going to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not doing anything right now either because I want something in return. But be honest with yourself. If you have been someone who's been giving way more than you've been receiving, there has been something underneath there while you've been doing that. And radical honesty is key in transforming not only your romantic life, but your entire life.